My wife sent me an email that landed with the weight of a bomb. It read, "I'm filing for separation. Please respect my privacy." I typed a calm reply, "Of course." Then I executed what I considered routine damage control. I forwarded her message to our mediator, shut down the joint credit line, and replaced her name on my HR file so she was no longer my emergency contact. 2 days later, my phone rang at work. HR was on the line. Her carefully constructed privacy had already collapsed. I'm 41 years old, male, and a systems architect by profession. My entire mindset is built around logic. Define the conditions, map out the variables, and act on the solution. When her message arrived, I treated it like a critical outage in a network system. The subject line of her email was her name, Karen. The contents were clinical, detached. "Leo, I am writing to inform you that I will be filing for a legal separation. I've removed the essentials and will coordinate for the rest later. I believe this is best. Please respect my privacy during this difficult time. From here forward, all communication should be in writing." That was it. 12 years of marriage shut down with a sterile memo. No discussion, no warning. Just 2 days earlier, we'd been working side by side in the garden. I had dinner reservations for her upcoming birthday. Then suddenly this difficult time. The words were so hollow they made me ache. The pain hit hard, like a hot spike wedged beneath my ribs, but I pressed it down. Emotions wouldn't solve this. Panic was useless. She had set the rules. Privacy. Written correspondence. Fine. I would abide. My response was composed, steady. After pressing send, I started my process. It wasn't revenge, it was risk management. The first step was to create documentation. I forwarded the email chain to our marriage counselor, Dr. Albright, with a note. "For your records, it looks like our sessions have concluded. Leo." That simple move ensured a time-stamped record existed of her initiating the end on her terms. The second step was to close the joint home equity line of credit. We'd opened it years ago for house renovations, and it still had a $50,000 limit. Allowing someone who had just severed our partnership to retain access to that kind of liability was reckless. I logged into the bank's portal and submitted the closure request. The third step was the most emotionally brutal, but also the most logical. I opened my company's HR portal, pulled up the emergency contact section, and saw her name at the top, Karen. I clicked edit, deleted her, entered my father's information, and saved. In 3 clicks, I erased a decade of instinct, that if anything happened to me, she'd be the first to know. Not anymore. I worked another hour, hyper-focused, before heading home. The house felt alien. Her side of the closet, half empty. The bathroom sink, stripped of her bottles and brushes. The silence pressed in, strange and deafening. I felt hollow but calm. She wanted distance. I gave it. That was Monday. By Wednesday, everything unraveled. The call came in the middle of the afternoon. Julianne from HR. "Hi Leo, do you have a minute?" she asked, her tone hesitant. "Yes. What's going on?" "We've had a situation," she said carefully. "Karen had a fall in the lobby. Twisted her ankle pretty badly during a visit with the marketing team." I said nothing. She's not in any life-threatening danger, but she was in significant pain. Protocol requires us to contact the emergency contact in cases like these. Since she consults here, her manager couldn't find her file, so they checked yours. But you had already removed her, and she hadn't listed anyone on her end. So, we ended up calling her parents. I waited in silence. Her voice softened. Her mother was very upset. She didn't know about your separation, and was blindsided when the company called from another city. There was confusion over why we weren't contacting you, since you both work in the same building. The system she'd put in place, her privacy, her boundaries, had cracked. The very protocols she wanted to avoid had forced her hand in front of her family. "I see," I said evenly. "Thank you for letting me know. I hope she's all right." Julianne hesitated. Well, it created a scene. Her mother insisted on speaking with her. So Karen had to explain right there on speakerphone with a paramedic waiting beside her. It was awkward. Awkward was one word for it. Karen had believed she could choreograph a clean, controlled exit. But reality is messier than intentions. Protocols like systems don't bend to narrative. They just run until they fail. And now her carefully built facade had fractured in front of witnesses. I hung up with Julianne, my voice calm, my expression unreadable. But inside I knew. The next message from Karen would not be polite. This system failure was just the beginning of a cascade. A week has passed since her email. The silence between us has transformed from cold to openly hostile. As I suspected, her next move broke her own carefully drawn rule about written communication. About an hour after HR had called me, my phone lit up with a string of texts. They called my mother. My 68-year-old mother with a heart condition. Do you have any idea what you've done? You removed me as your emergency contact after 12 years of marriage. That's the cruelest, most psychotic thing I've ever heard. And the helic is frozen? I needed that for the deposit on my apartment. You've stranded me. Her outrage poured off the screen, but all I saw was entitlement. She ended our life together with a sterile email, demanded privacy, then lashed out when that same privacy became inconvenient. I didn't reply. Instead, I took screenshots and sent them to our mediator with the subject line. Further correspondence. The real face-to-face confrontation arrived 2 days later, on a Saturday morning. I was drinking coffee when the doorbell camera chimed. Karen stood there in a medical boot, leaning on crutches, her expression full of fury. Her sister Beatrix hovered beside her, storm cloud dark. I didn't open the door. I pressed the intercom. Karen, you said you'd arrange a time. Don't be childish, Leo. Let us in. I need my things. My important things. Your email said you would arrange a time. This is not arranged. Send me an email with a proposed date and time, and I'll confirm. Beatrix shoved her face toward the camera. Stop playing games. She's injured because of you. She needs her clothes and her art supplies. You can't keep her hostage. Injured because of me? My tone was flat. I wasn't aware I was responsible for the building's lobby floor. Karen let out a frustrated yell. You know what she means. If you hadn't been so petty and taken me off your file, none of this would have happened. It's the stress you caused. The logic was absurd. Her fall was somehow my fault because I had done exactly what she asked. Distance myself. I repeated, send me an email, and ended the call. They pounded on the door for several more minutes before leaving. An hour later, an email arrived. It wasn't a request to set a time. It was a list. Not just clothes or toiletries, but high-value items. The antique cartography prints in the study, my grandfather's handcrafted bookshelf, the limited edition turntable we had bought together. These weren't her belongings. They were the most valuable and sentimentally important assets in the house. This wasn't retrieval. It was looting. She thought she could raid the home before legal proceedings caught up. I wrote back. Karen, thank you for the list. I am available next Saturday between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. for you to collect your personal belongings, clothing, toiletries, etc. Please note that shared assets, including artwork, furniture, and electronics, will remain in the home until formally divided during mediation or legal proceedings. They will not be removed. I will also have a third-party observer present to document the removal of your items. Leo. Her reply was immediate and venomous. A third party? You snake. You're making this as difficult as possible. Fine, but you haven't won anything. Her entitlement was one thing. Her greed was something else entirely. She didn't just want to walk away. She wanted to scorch the earth on her way out, and then profit from the ashes. The mistake was thinking she could play that game with me. I know how to build systems. I also know how to keep them from burning down. The morning of the pickup felt heavy, like a storm waiting to break. My friend Alan, an accountant with a calm, unreadable demeanor, had agreed to be present. His role was simple: sit in the living room, take notes if needed, and provide an impartial pair of eyes. His quiet steadiness was the anchor I needed. At 10:05 sharp, a large moving van rolled up to the curb. Not the small truck I had expected. A full-on professional van. Karen stepped out first, hobbling slightly in her medical boot. Beatrix followed, her expression wary. Then the driver's side door opened, and out stepped Gideon, the VP of marketing from her consulting firm. The man I had once shaken hands with at a holiday party and immediately disliked. That polished smile he wore felt like something rehearsed, not real. So this was the man she had wanted to keep hidden. Before they could knock, I opened the door. Karen. Beatrix. I gave a curt nod toward Gideon. And you must be the hired muscle. He smirked. I'm here to help Karen move her belongings. Her personal belongings, I corrected, stepping aside. The foyer was stacked with neatly taped boxes, clothes, shoes, toiletries, and other personal effects I had packed myself. Alan, sitting comfortably in the armchair, lifted a hand in a small, polite wave. His presence clearly unsettled Karen. She hadn't expected a controlled, documented process. Her voice sharpened. The prints from the study aren't here. As I stated in my email, shared marital assets remain until legally divided. I replied evenly. They were a gift to me from my parents, she shot back. They were an anniversary gift to both of us. I still have the card addressed to us as a couple. They stay. Her face hardened, frustration bleeding through. Beatrix, perhaps trying to tip the balance, wandered into the living room. What about the media console? Karen picked it out. And I paid for it, I said calmly. It stays. That's when Gideon tried to play the white knight. He stepped forward, puffing himself up. Look, man. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Just let her take what she wants and we'll be gone. The things she wants, I answered coolly, are marital assets. I'm sure you, as a VP, understand what that means. Unless, of course, you'd like your name formally included in the legal proceedings as someone facilitating the removal of joint property. His smirk faltered. The threat of being dragged into a lawsuit as a third party landed. He retreated half a step, saying nothing more. The breaking point came over something that wasn't about money at all. A sculpture we'd bought on our honeymoon. Driftwood and recycled glass, odd and beautiful. It symbolized the beginning of us. Karen's eyes locked on it. I'm taking the Wanderer, she declared, striding toward the mantel. No, my voice was low, but final. Her tone turned mocking. It's just a piece of wood, Leo. Don't be childish. It's not just a piece of wood. And you know it. I reminded her. Until legally decided, it stays. She let out a frustrated, almost theatrical sob, then did something I never saw coming. She grabbed the sculpture and shoved it hard off the mantel. It smashed against the stone hearth, the glass shattering into dozens of fragments. The room froze. Alan stopped writing. Beatrix gasped. Even Gideon looked stunned. Karen just stood there, chest heaving, with a look of twisted triumph. There, she spat. Now neither of us has it. I stared at the broken pieces, then at her face. The hurt that had been simmering inside me for weeks rose up. Not as rage, but as something cold and sharp. Wordlessly, I pulled out my phone, opened the security camera app, and saved the last 5 minutes of footage. Then I met her eyes. Her expression faltered as the weight of what she'd done in front of witnesses, and on camera, sank in. Triumph drained into panic. Take your boxes, I said flatly, and get out of my house. The movers Gideon had arranged quickly carried out the boxes from the foyer. No furniture, no shared property. 15 minutes later, they were gone. As Beatrix walked out, she turned and said bitterly, I hope you're happy, Leo. You've destroyed her. I looked down at the shattered sculpture. No, I said quietly. She destroyed herself. I'm just finally seeing her clearly. 8 months passed. The divorce was finalized last week. Looking back, the destruction of the Wanderer was the turning point. It wasn't about the object's worth. It was undeniable proof of her malice. When my lawyer presented the video at our first settlement meeting, Karen's attorney went pale. Gideon, who had been bankrolling her legal battle, was strongly advised to step away. That single act painted her as vindictive, not victimized. From there, the dominoes fell hard. On the asset division, the judge openly described her actions as bad faith. I gained leverage. She had wanted to force the house sale, but instead, I bought her out at a price below market value, factoring in damages and emotional distress. She lost claims on the antique prints, the turntable, and my grandfather's bookshelf. She left with only items that were provably hers before the marriage. Financially, she had gambled and lost. The home equity line she tried to drain had been shut down, wrecking the startup she planned with Gideon. That business was supposed to be their big move, funded by marital credit. Without it, their plan collapsed under mounting legal costs. Gideon's financial support dwindled as he realized she hadn't delivered the clean, profitable exit she promised. Professionally, their reputations took hits. Word of the chaotic moving day and the destroyed sculpture spread quietly but steadily. They weren't fired, but people whispered. They were now seen as reckless, unprofessional, and unstable. I later heard Gideon was passed over for a promotion. Karen, desperate, tried to push for long-term spousal support. My lawyer countered with evidence that she and Gideon had registered the domain for their planned business months before her emotional exit. The judge ruled her departure premeditated, a financial maneuver. She was granted only minimal rehabilitative alimony, barely enough to cover her car payment. It was a decisive legal defeat. I never got an apology, not even a flicker of remorse. Word reached me later that she tells others I had a breakdown, that my paranoia drove her away. That narrative is all she has left. But I have my freedom. The house is mine, quiet again. The broken sculpture, the wanderer. I couldn't bring myself to throw it away. I swept up the pieces and packed them into a box in the attic. A reminder that sometimes things must be shattered beyond repair before something new can be built. And slowly, piece by piece, I'm rebuilding. This time on solid ground.